A rash of suspected overdoses near Dufferin and Eglinton has Toronto police issuing a warning about potential harmful street drugs.
Police say they don't know what specific drug led to the deaths, and more of the drug may still be out on the streets. CTV's Beth McDonnell reports.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there.
The number of deaths and overdose deaths has not been slowing down in the city of Toronto, and perhaps the division in that area wanted people to be alert, although Dufferin and Eglinton is a neighborhood that historically has had a number of overdoses and overdose deaths.
Zoe Dodd, co-organizer of the Toronto Overdose Prevention Society, says geography can play a role when there is a rash of overdoses.
It could be the batch that's there. It could also be the fact that neighborhood in particular doesn't have a lot of services. There isn't a supervised consumption site for anyone to go to. There isn't drug checking in that neighborhood. So everything for drug, that kind of the overdose prevention sites, the supervised consumption sites, that's all very centrally located.
Toronto Public Health says the illicit drug supply in the city is toxic and contaminated, with varying concentrations of fentanyl combined with other substances like respiratory depressants. When the drug supply is unpredictable and increasingly toxic, people who use drugs are more at risk of overdose because the drugs might be different or more potent than expected, said the city's Associate Medical Officer of Health.
Police are reminding people who use drugs to be extremely careful and never use alone. Advocates also urge people to bring samples to Toronto's drug checking service and keep a naloxone kit on hand. Beth McDonnell, CTV.
Into your life, it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. You step out of line, the man come and take you away. We better stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. Hey, look around. Everybody knows what's going down. Stop. Hey, look around. Everybody knows what's going down.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Hadfield, for coming today. Appreciate the motion. Apologize for not seeing it back in November, and I think we were all stuck in budget mode at that time. So sorry that it's taken so long to work its way through the process. Just for context, Mum Stop the Harm is experience-based group, correct? Along the lines of Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Yeah, we are an advocate group of families that have lost loved ones due to overdose. We also support and offer peer support to those families that have a loved one in active addiction and those that are in recovery.
Okay, thank you. And part of the challenge, as I understand it then, is existing policies, which are both provincial and federal in nature, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so the intent of your motion is just to have the federal government be more aware of a need to readdress those policies. What your motion, I believe, does is offers options, but just for consideration. Ultimately, it's up to the federal government to establish a different or new approaches to trying to deal with the opioid crisis in our country. Is that correct?
That's correct. Addiction is the issues with the crisis are most straining at the local level with communities and families and economies, and the individuals affected themselves. So a collective and united front by many municipalities can have a significant influence on higher levels of government.
Thank you for that. Do you have an approximate number of how many municipalities across, we can start in Alberta or across Canada, have actually
Yes, I do.
this? Yeah, thank you. If you have that.
So there was two. So these are municipalities that have passed part of the resolution for the federal provincial overdose action plan that includes consideration of decriminalization and legal regulation. So in Newfoundland, there was two, Daniels Harbor and Ferryland. In Quebec, there is 6, Colombière, Saint Valérien, Saint Joseph de Coleraine, Saint Emile de Lorange, Saint André de Argentel, Saint Francois Xavier de Viga. In Ontario, there's 7, Halton Hills, Cobourg, Thellison, Kealo, Haggerty and Richards, Brantford, Mallory Town, Elizabethtown, Kittley. In Saskatchewan, it's Creighton and Saskatoon. In British Columbia, it was Squamish, Kamloops, Salmo, Victoria, Lake Country, White Rock, Saanich, Central Saanich, Powell River, New Westminster, Pemberton, Smithers, Fruitvale, Ashcroft, Fernie, Courtney, Rossland, Cumberland, Mission, and Trail. 13 municipalities have passed part of the Mum Stop the Harm resolution or have taken other action, and this is as of May 17th. Selwyn, Ontario, Laird, Ontario, North Grenville, Ontario, Perth, Ontario, Delta, BC, Burnaby, BC, Oliver, BC, North Vancouver, BC, Prince George, BC, Oak Bay, BC, Edmonton, Alberta, District of West Vancouver, BC, Brockville, Ontario. And 4 municipalities or municipality bodies have passed their own resolutions, which is Montreal, Quebec, Vancouver, BC, Niagara Regional Council, Ontario, and St. Catharines, Ontario.
Thank you. Do you know why those last 4 passed their own? Was it a different approach or different consideration?
So Montreal City Council passed a motion calling on the federal government to decriminalize the simple possession of illicit drugs nationally. That move was applauded by harm reduction groups who are urging Montreal to also follow Vancouver's lead and apply for formal decriminalization exemption. There is a source for that I would be more than pleased to send you.
I can find that myself. Thank you.
Okay. In Vancouver, councillors in Vancouver have voted unanimously to ask the federal government to decriminalize possession of small amounts of illicit drugs. City staff will now write to federal officials, including the Ministers of Health and Justice, seeking an exemption from the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. In Niagara Regional Council, after bouncing between the full council and committee, Niagara's regional councillors have voted narrowly to ask the federal government to study the decriminalization of possession of all drugs. And in St. Catharines, Ontario, St. Catharines is adding its support to the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police effort to decriminalize personal possession of illicit drugs in the hope of focusing on treatment of people suffering from addictions rather than arresting them. So as you can see, municipalities have taken what we have brought forward and they've tailored it to what they are comfortable with.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kaufman. Deputy Mayor Campbell.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing this before us. I just wanted to have you reached out to our Member of Parliament, and has there been positive response to her?
To Rachel Harder?
Yes.
No, I have not reached out to Rachel Harder.
Or any of our MLAs as well?
So on a personal level, members of Mum Stop the Harm have done their own petitions and forward them to the federal government. I believe it was, we were directed, sorry, if you can just bear with me for a second. I think we were directed by Patty Hadju that we bring this forward to our municipalities and that they bring that forward to the federal government. When we did our own personal petitions, those were sent to members of Parliament. However, that was the option of the member, if I understand correctly, it was the option of the member of parliament to present those petitions to the federal government, meaning that we could provide them to our members of parliament, but it was up to them if they wanted to bring that forward in the House of Commons. Therefore, we were selective in choosing which member of parliament to bring that forward so that they would actually be read.
So you're thinking that there's more power in getting a resolution from a municipality, I'm guessing.
Yes, if a municipality brings something forward, there's more likelihood of that being heard in the federal government.
Okay, thank you.